Think your Ford can't run like new again? Think again. I've pulled engines out of trucks and sedans that most people wrote off, and they still fired like a champ after a little honest maintenance. I've seen Fords with over 350,000 miles on the original engine. Same pistons, same crank, same block. Still running like the day they rolled off the lot. Not because the owner babysat it, but because they did a few simple things that most people skip. They stuck to the basics. They didn't buy the lifetime snake oil, and they checked things before they turned into big problems. Hi, I'm RJ. I've been turning wrenches on Fords for over 20 years. Everything from Crown Vics and old Rangers to the newest F-150s, Explorers, Escapes, and the little Falcons and Focuses you don't see as often. I've spent more hours under the hood of a Ford than most folks spend behind the wheel. I've seen the good ones and the ones that make you wince. But I'll tell you right now, if you treat the engine right, it'll treat you right back. Ignore it, and it'll remind you the hard way. Warning lights, knocking, and bills that make you rethink life choices. Today I'm going to run you through 10 proven steps I use in the shop every week. Simple, clear actions that add up. Do these, and you'll get better throttle response, a smoother idle, stronger acceleration, and more miles. Do them consistently, and you can push your Ford's life out easily by another 100,000 miles. Stick with me to the end. Step number 10 isn't flashy. Most mechanics don't talk about it, but it's the difference between it runs okay and, man, this feels new. Here's the plan. We'll take the engine system piece by piece. Oil habits, breathing and airflow, fuel system health, ignition and spark, cooling, PVC and blow-by, carbon cleanup, sensors and vacuum integrity, throttle body work and idle return, and then the secret habit that keeps everything working. I'll give you part numbers where it matters, brand names I trust, tools you'll actually need for every DIY, approximate prices, and a few shop stories so you know what happens when people skip this stuff. This isn't one of those vague do maintenance videos. I'll tell you exactly what to look for, how to do it, how much it should cost, and when to take it to a shop. Grab a notepad, let's get into it. Step number 1, get your oil game right. Oil is the lifeblood of an engine. Everything else in the engine is secondary to keeping clean oil circulating. When oil's good, your engine's protected. When it's bad, everything goes fast. I cannot overstate this. The number one way people kill engines slowly is by ignoring oil or using garbage. I've opened engines where the oil looked like chocolate milkshake, black, thick, and gritty. Bearings, cam lobes, lifters, all of it shows wear faster when the oil's gone bad. Here's the rule I use in my shop. For real-world driving, stop and go, short trips, towing, cold starts, aim for an oil change every 5,000 miles or less with full synthetic. Now the manual sometimes says 7,500 or even 10K for normal service, but that's with ideal driving conditions. Most of us live in the real world. Full synthetic is worth it because it keeps viscosity and detergency better over time. Look for API and Ford approvals on the bottle. For most Fords, you'll be using 5W30 or 5W20. Check the cap or the manual and follow what Ford recommends. Filters matter as much as the oil. Cheap filters collapse or don't filter well. I tell customers, spend that extra $10 on a Motorcraft or a quality Wix Fram that meets specs. The anti-drain back valve and the center tube strength are things you won't see until it's bad. A collapsed filter can starve the engine on startup. Dry starts cause wear quicker than anything else. Practical checks. When you change oil, inspect the drain plug for metal shavings. A few are normal, a cup of metal is not. Smell the oil on the dipstick. Burnt oil smells acrid. Gasoline smell on the oil means dilution. Check level weekly, especially on older Fords or ones known for consumption. If you're losing more than a quart every 1,000 to 1,500 miles, start tracking it and look for leaks, PCV issues, or worn valve guides. DIY tools and time. Basic oil change, drain pan, socket for the plug, oil filter wrench, funnel, gloves, rags. Count on 30 to 45 minutes. Cost? Good synthetic and filter will run $40 to $80. Compare that to a $4,000 engine teardown down the road. The math's simple. When I teach young techs, I say oil is insurance. Cheap today, costly later. If you notice heavy blow-by, smoke on startup, oil in the intake tubing, get compression and leak-down tests run. Sometimes worn piston rings need attention. But often the earlier you catch consumption, the simpler the fix. PCV, valve seals, or oil catch can strategies. Step 2. Clean air equals strong engine. Your engine needs oxygen to make power. A clogged intake is like a runner with a straw for air. Air filters on Fords are cheap, but they're often overlooked. I can't tell you how many trucks come in wheezing because the air filter hasn't been changed in 40,000 miles. Hold that filter up to light. If you can't see through it, replace it. That's simple. For most vehicles, replace every 15 to 20,000 miles. Sooner if you drive dusty roads. Mass airflow sensor, the unsung hero, sits right after the filter and tells the ECU how much air is coming in. If it's dirty, it lies to the computer and you get poor fuel trims, hesitation, and sometimes no codes. Use an MAF cleaner available at any parts store and spray the sensor wires lightly. Don't touch the element, don't use brake cleaner. Let it air dry. That fix will cure a rough idle in a surprising number of cars. If you're into cold air intakes, be conservative. Many aftermarket intakes increase airflow but also let more contaminants or oil vapors pass. If you do it, maintain the air filter properly and be sure the MAF readings are checked after installation. Symptoms of airflow issues: stumbling under acceleration, less top-end power, black soot on the filter housing, poor fuel economy. Fixing the air intake system gives the engine immediate improvement. Better throttle response, and more consistent power. And it's easy. $10 to $20 for a filter, 10 minutes to change it. That's theater-level return on investment. Step number 3, fuel system cleanup. The fuel system is your engine's diet. Dirty injectors and clogged intake runners rob power and economy. Direct injection engines like EcoBoost models are exceptionally efficient, but they're also prone to carbon buildup because, unlike port-injected engines, fuel doesn't wash over the intake valves. Over time, varnish and carbon cake up on the valves and runners and you start losing throttle response. My shop routine? Recommend a fuel system cleaner every 3,000 to 5,000 miles for preventative care. A bottle added to the tank. It's cheap, about $8 to $15, and it keeps the injectors from building deposits. For noticeable performance loss or rough idle, I'll run a more aggressive injector cleaning machine, or on severe EcoBoost buildup, a walnut blast service. Walnut blasting is where we blast crushed walnut shells at the intake to remove carbon without damaging aluminum. It's messy and takes skill, but the result is dramatic. Engines breathe like new. Typical shop cost $200 to $350 depending on the engine. Fuel pressure checks. If you lose power under load but have a good idle, test fuel rail pressure. A failing fuel pump or regulator will show up as low pressure under demand. Don't assume less power is always mechanical. Sometimes it's fuel delivery, and always use top-tier gasoline where possible. The detergents in top-tier fuels reduce deposits, and over the long haul, they save you injector dollars. Injector symptoms: hesitation under acceleration, misfire under load, rough idle that disappears at highway speed. A certified shop can flow test injectors. For DIYers, the bottle cleaner is your first line. If the problem persists, schedule a shop service. You'll be amazed at how many slow Fords turn lively after injectors and intake cleaning. Step number 4, spark plugs and ignition health. Ignition is the final spark that turns fuel into power, and small problems here show up big on the road. Many modern Fords have coil-on-plug systems. Each cylinder's coil sits right on the plug, and if the coil or plug is failing, you'll get misfires, rough running, and sometimes catalytic converter damage. Let's talk intervals. Yes, the manufacturer schedules often show long plug life, but that's on paper. If you drive hard, tow, or have a turbo, replace plugs earlier. I recommend around 60,000 miles for many Fords. Sooner if you notice fouling or misfires. Use Motorcraft plugs for the fit and heat range Ford specifies. Off-brand plugs are a gamble. Wrong heat range means fouling or pre-ignition. When changing plugs, clean the area around the plug to avoid dropping debris in the cylinder. Use a torque wrench and electronic torque specs. Aluminum heads strip easily, and you don't want to pay for a helicoil job. When you suspect a coil is bad, swap it to another cylinder. If the misfire follows the coil, replace it. Coils are not cheap, but they're an easy diagnosis. Ignition-related failures: increased fuel consumption, hesitation, rough idle, stumbling on acceleration. Replace plugs and coils in pairs as recommended. One failing coil can damage the converter if ignored, and replacing a converter is costly. Tools and parts: torque wrench, feeler gauge if needed, socket set, dielectric grease for coil boots, motorcraft, plugs and coils. Time: 45 to 90 minutes depending on the engine layout. Cost: $80 to $200 for parts on most Fords. Step number 5. Coolant and overheating prevention. There's no polite way to say it. Engines die from heat. Overheating warps heads and kills gaskets, and when coolant gets neglected, the results are catastrophic. I see it every summer. Owners ignore low levels or a little pink fluid in the oil, and a week later, they're in a tow truck. Replace coolant every 5 years or 60,000 miles, whichever comes first. And use the Ford-approved coolant specified in your manual. Ford has its own formulations, and Universal Green Stuff isn't always compatible. Use distilled water in the mix to avoid mineral deposits. If you find rust, sludge, or an oily sheen in the reservoir, flush the system. A professional flush and thermostat replacement runs roughly $70 to $150 in most shops. Cheap insurance. Watch the thermostat and water pump. The thermostat can stick closed and cause slow warm-up or overheating. Water pumps wear. Look for weeping at the weep hole or coolant on the timing cover. Small leaks often hide at hose connections. Replace old hoses at the first sign of cracking. Also, check your cooling fan and relays. A bad fan relay can allow the engine to overheat at idle, and that's a common failure I fix on hot days. Symptoms: rising temperature gauge at idle, intermittent overheating, white smoke, head gasket failure, milky oil, coolant in oil. If you see milky oil, shut the engine off and get it inspected. That's a big-ticket fix. Prevent it with timely flushes and attention. Step number 6. Engine breathing and PCV system. This is one of those small parts that causes big headaches. The positive crankcase ventilation, or PCV system, keeps crankcase pressure in check and routes blow-by gases back to the intake to burn. If it clogs, pressure builds and oil goes places it shouldn't, into the intake, into the MAF, or into vacuum lines. That leads to consumption, carbon, and fouled sensors. And PCV valves are cheap, usually under $20, and they take minutes to replace. Replace them every 40,000 miles or when sticky. When you remove the valve, shake it. A functioning valve has an audible rattle. If it's stuck or oil-coated, replace it. On turbocharged EcoBoost engines, consider adding a small oil catch can. It's a simple inline canister between the PCV and intake that traps oil mist before it reaches the intake valves. It's not required, but it's an inexpensive upgrade that extends intake life, especially on direct injection engines. Symptoms of PCV problems: oil on the intake boots, increased oil consumption, rough idle, and sometimes an engine code for evap or fuel trims. Preventing PCV failure prevents a cascade of other problems. Step number 7. Carbon buildup, the silent killer. Carbon buildup is a slow, silent problem that chips away at performance. Direct injection engines, many EcoBoosts included, do not wash the intake valves with fuel so deposits accumulate. When carbon builds, you lose low-end torque, see rough idle, hear pinging, or notice poor throttle response. If you've sustained poor performance, consider a Walnut blast service. I'll say it again, Walnut blasting is messy, but it works. It's a method where we remove the intake, blast with crushed walnut shells, and remove carbon without scouring the metal. After the blast, we often replace intake gaskets and reassemble. It's labor-intensive, but effective, and prices are commonly in the $200 to $400 range depending on the engine. For a lower-cost approach, there are intake cleaners you spray in through the throttle body while the engine runs. Follow instructions carefully, then take the car on a highway drive to clear residues. I use both approaches depending on how bad the buildup is. Symptoms: hesitation on throttle application, poor miles per gallon, check engine lights related to knock or misfires, rough idle. If you have a manual or forum thread that matches your year and engine, read up. Some engines are worse than others, and owners often share the intervals where cleaning becomes necessary. Preventative steps: catch can, frequent oil changes, premium fuel occasionally, and periodic cleaner use. You'd be surprised how many cars feel transformed after a proper decarb. Step number 8, vacuum and sensor checks. Modern Fords are controlled by sensors. A small vacuum leak or a lazy O2 sensor will throw the engine off. The nice part is these problems are easy to detect early if you scan the car and watch live data. Buy a basic OBD2 scanner with live data capability. They're cheap and they pay for themselves quickly. Check for codes monthly or if running changes. Vacuum leaks are sneaky. Small cracked hoses or a split intake manifold gasket cause lean conditions, rough idle, and stumbling under load. Spray a little carb cleaner around vacuum lines while it idles. If the idle changes, you found a leak. Replace brittle hoses and check vacuum tree connections. MAF and O2 sensors age. An MAF that reads low gives too little fuel. A slow oxygen sensor keeps the engine running rich or lean longer than it should. Replacement O2 sensors run $40 to $150 depending on position and make. A failing MAP sensor creates drivability problems as well. When in doubt, check data logs. Look at short-term and long-term fuel trims. Numbers outside a certain range indicate either a vacuum leak, MAF issue, or fuel delivery problems. I once had a Fusion averaging 12 miles per gallon with no CEL. Hooked up a scanner, watched O2 data, and found the sensor was lazy. Swapped it out for $50 and the owner saw 24 miles per gallon that week. Sensors aren't sexy, but a good scan changes lives. Step 9. Throttle body and idle relearn. The throttle body is the front door for air to the engine. Over years, carbon forms where the throttle plate seals to the bore, and that ring makes the plate stick. Clean it carefully. Remove intake hoses, hold the plate open gently, and use a throttle body cleaner and microfiber to wipe carbon away. Don't spray cleaners into sensors, and don't use a brush that will scratch the bore. A few wipes, rotate the plate manually a bit, and reassemble. After cleaning, many Fords need an idle relearn. Procedurally, let the engine warm to operating temperature and idle for about 10 minutes with everything off. Then switch on the AC and let it stabilize for another 10 minutes. Some models require a short drive cycle to relearn load-based idle. This allows the ECU to read the new throttle behavior and set proper idle control. Symptoms addressed: rough idle, stalling at low speed, hunting RPMs at stoplights. For many owners, a throttle clean and idle relearn yields a smoother stop-and-go driving experience. Step number 10. Keep your engine exercising. Here's the one everyone underestimates. Engines don't like long periods of short local driving or sitting. Short trips prevent reaching full operating temperature, which allows moisture, unburned fuel, and combustion byproducts to remain in the oil and exhaust system. Over time, that moisture and sludge deteriorates seals, plugs, and the catalytic converter. Low-mileage cars often have a surprising number of problems because they're not run long enough to burn off residues. I tell customers, once a week, take your Ford for a 20 to 30-minute run on a highway or at least stretch the engine beyond normal town speeds. Let it get hot and stay hot for 10 to 15 minutes. That burns off moisture. The exhaust gets hot enough to regenerate the converter on diesel or certain systems, and the turbo sees some flow so seals get lubricated. If you store a vehicle for long periods, run it on a regular interval or use a fuel stabilizer for seasonal parking. Drive it in a manner that exercises all gears in automatic transmissions occasionally. Let it upshift and downshift. Don't baby it at one speed for months. Symptoms of sedentary engine problems are sluggish throttle, diluted oil, wet exhaust on startup, and accelerated corrosion. Trust me, movement is maintenance in disguise. Step 11. Transmission fluid is engine life support. This one is easy to forget. If the transmission is dragging, the engine suffers. Heat in the transmission increases load and robs power. Bad shifting causes stress. For most Ford automatics, fluid should be inspected and changed roughly every 60 to 80,000 miles. Sooner under towing or heavy-duty driving. Use the proper fluid, Mercon LV or ULV as specified, and don't mix fluids. Check for burnt smell, dark fluid, and particles. On older cars, a pan drop for an internal inspection sometimes reveals metal. It's not a good sight. A healthy fluid change includes a pan gasket, filter replacement, and sometimes a flush. If you tow often, shorten intervals. A transmission service of $100 to $200 is cheap insurance compared to a $3,000 to $4,000 rebuild. Also understand, if transmission shifts are harsh, it stresses the drivetrain and can make the engine work harder. Address transmission issues with as much priority as engine ones. In many shop cases, a simple fluid service resolves low-power complaints that sounded like engine trouble. Step number 12. Keep electricals healthy. Modern engines are electrical beasts. A weak battery means low cranking voltage, bad sensor references, and sporadic misbehavior. Clean battery terminals with baking soda and water solution, tighten clamps, and look for corrosion. If resting voltage is below 12.3 volts, test the battery under load and consider replacement. Check alternator output. A failing alternator can produce voltage spikes or drops that confuse the ECU. Grounds are critical. Clean, tight ground straps ensure the sensors report correctly. A single loose ground strap under the intake manifold can produce odd codes and misfire symptoms even when everything else looks fine. Symptoms of electrical issues: odd CEL, intermittent stalling, random misfires at cruising speed, and strange sensor readings. Electrical diagnosis can be a rabbit hole, but start with the battery, alternator, and main grounds. Replace corroded cables and worn clamps. Step number 13. Listen to your engine. Engines talk, you just have to listen. A tapping or ticking could be valve train noise. A hard knock on acceleration could be a rod knock or detonation. Pay attention to timing. Does it start after a cold start or only when hot? Is it under load or idle? Record it on your phone and play it back for your mechanic. I can tell a lot from a short clip. If you hear a knocking that goes away under throttle, that could be lifter noise or valve clearance issues. Persistent knock under load is more serious. Rod bearings or piston slap. Don't ignore these noises. Early detection often means a bearing job or simple top-end work. Late detection means engine out. Get familiar with normal engine sounds for your model. When something changes, that's your cue to act. Humans are good detectors. We notice unusual tones. Use that. Don't drown it out with loud music on commutes and forget the small signals. Step number 14. Software updates and maintenance records. We live in an era where the computer can make or break drivability. Ford releases PCM and TCM updates that fix drivability, idle, fuel trims, and shifting logic. Check Ford Pass, the dealer, or reliable service bulletins for updates for your VIN. Sometimes a simple software update smooths out rough idle or solves a transmission learning issue without parts. Keep a paper or app record. Oil change dates, mileage, parts replaced, codes cleared, and why. Maintenance records not only help you spot trends like accelerating oil consumption, but they improve resale value. When I buy a used car to flip, the first thing I look for is a neat stack of maintenance receipts. Organized owners have better running cars. Step number 15. Fuel quality and additives. Finally, fuel matters. Use top-tier gasoline where possible. It keeps the injectors and rings clean. Every 5 fill-ups, add a fuel system cleaner as preventative maintenance. Don't believe the lifetime additives some sellers push. They often skip real chemistry that works. For diesels, use a cetane booster if you need better cold start behavior, and change fuel filters per interval. If you live in an area with ethanol-heavy fuel, watch out for phase separation and long storage. Add stabilizer for storage and change the fuel filter more often than routine intervals if fuel quality is questionable. Small costs here compound into big savings on injectors, sensors, and converter life. The secret to keeping a Ford engine running like new isn't one magic trick. It's consistency and attention to the small stuff. Oil on time, clean air, proper coolant, healthy spark and ignition, controlling carbon, taking care of sensors and vacuum, regular highway runs, checking transmission fluid and electrical health. Keep records, update software, and don't skimp on fuel quality. Do this, and your Ford, whether it's a compact Focus, a musical Mustang, or a heavy-duty F-250, will thank you with smoother power, better mileage, and years of dependable service. I've seen folks give up on a car that just needed a handful of these steps, and I've seen others squeeze another 200,000 miles out of a well-maintained engine. It's about paying attention. If you found this helpful, hit that like button. It helps the channel get the word out so other owners can keep their cars on the road. Drop a comment with your Ford model and mileage, and tell me what you want covered next. I read every comment and answer the ones I can. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-world Ford advice. Next week, we'll go even deeper. Ford owners, please never do this to your Ford. You don't want to miss that if you want to protect your investment. Thanks for watching, take care of your Ford, and I'll see you in the next one.